Hey there. Chances are, if you're here, my guess is that you probably have back pain that's getting in the way from doing what you love and has you questioning, do I just have to live with it? Am I stuck like this? Am I broken? Do I need surgery? All of these questions and fears, these are all things that all of our patients at our office at Strive to Move have in common. And the number one thing that they have in common is that they've tried something else, like physical therapy, like going to the chiropractor, massage, injections. No one was ever able to figure out why it was even happening in the first place. And so today, I am going to talk through a case from one of our patients, Peter, who came in thinking the exact same thing. Have this back pain. It's not going away. I think I might have to live with it. But each year, my life just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I keep adapting. And I'm wondering what I can do about it. I'm wondering what is the root cause of my back pain. So if you're sitting here thinking, yeah, but that's Peter, that's not me, I invite you to stick around and actually listen to a story of somebody who was at his wit's end, didn't know what to do anymore, was stuck. And I'm going to talk through his whole case and where he's at now and how you can do the same for yourself. So stick around and you'll find out. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Kaylee. I'm the managing partner at Strive to Move, one of our chiropractors. And what we do at Strive to Move is so different than anything else any of our other patients have done before. And it starts with finding the root cause of why the back pain is even going around to begin with, why it hasn't changed despite everything that we've done. Why we feel so fragile picking something up off the ground and the mental barrier of, ooh, can I do that? Or am I going to be paying for it later? Am I going to have to lay on the couch? Can I do the simple 1 mile walk with my wife? Or am I going to have to sit down? That is what we do at Strive to Move. We solve problems that no one else has been able to solve because we first start with the why. So Peter didn't come to us because his back hurt. Yes, that's a problem, but it wasn't the real problem. The reason why Peter came to us is because he was afraid that after 25 years of unsolved back pain at 51 years old, that he couldn't touch his toes, rowing hurt him, walking hurt, putting on his socks hurt. And every single year, he felt like he was getting a little stiffer and life was getting a little smaller for him. He was afraid to move his back. But the thing that he was the most afraid of was actually becoming his dad. The fear that no one talks about is watching your aging parents fall apart and seeing yourself as the first chapter in that story. So Peter came to us and he was taking care of his dad and seeing that he needed more medications, more medical attention, less mobile, saying no to even more things, getting more grumpy. And Peter and his wife, Debbie, were like, man, holy shit, I don't want to be like that. We don't want to go down that road. And now he called us because he watched his dad have back pain for over 20 years and do nothing about it. And he didn't want to be his dad. So when I asked Peter, like, hey, tell me about your back pain, what's going on? Well, number one, to paint the picture, Peter's in his 50s, lives with his wife, Debbie. They live a very active lifestyle, and he's a pilot. And he is the breadwinner. So Peter cannot afford not to work. Peter is a pilot, and he's been flying for years. And he flies a plane that has a very small seat for him to sit on. And he sits for many hours out of the week. Now, obviously, I can't just tell him to stop sitting, and nor would that be helpful, right? That wouldn't actually fix the problem. We had to look deeper. But some other things that he was going through is he couldn't even put on his socks. He couldn't bend over and touch his toes. One of the ways that he found to stay active was going on his rower. And I remember when I was first talking to him, he said, I would love to just be able to row for 3 minutes without my back getting tight and hurting and me fearing that movement. When he said that to me, though, I had to push him on that. Because initially, the only thing that he was saying is, I just want to be able to bend over, put my socks on. And at 51 years old, that is no life to live, to have that small of a goal. Just be able to bend over and put our socks on. And I get it. I've seen a lot of other patients who like, just want to get out of pain. I just want to be able to put my socks on. And like, I think the rest is going to be able to take care of itself. And the problem is that we're not dreaming big enough because we're just so afraid of becoming our parents that it's like, hey, could we actually be not just them, but even better? What quality of life could we have? And so even when Peter would go for a 1 mile walk with Debbie, he would say, I can't even do that without my back being sore for 1 to 2 days later. And looking at Peter, he's not out of shape. You wouldn't be like, oh, wow, he's not overweight. Peter is in decent shape. So what's the explanation here? Peter went to the chiropractor for years. And he said that it was helpful whenever things were really acute and painful. It helped to get him out of pain short. And so he would just go through bouts of going to the chiropractor for years. And at some point, he realized, hey, I'm just managing this and I'm not actually changing anything with my back pain. I'm just waiting for it to come back to then go into the chiropractor for a few times and then comes right back, right? However, what he was starting to realize with the chiropractor is that it was getting really difficult to adjust his low back. And it eventually got so bad to the point when the chiropractor would adjust his low back that he would be in pain for 1 to 2 weeks after. And he just accepted that this was like part of the treatment. At some point, he stopped going. He also tried physical therapy and he knew his hips were tight. And so what did we do? We stretched. And he was given hamstring exercises to stretch his low back. But the problem is that he would feel worse after stretching. And so finally, he was like, I don't know if I'm overstretching. I don't know if I'm overdoing it. And that's the thing that legitimately makes me so sad when I hear our patients say that, because it's not your fault. It's not your fault that the root cause was never even addressed. It's not your fault that you were stretching the wrong thing. It's not on you. And so going to the chiropractor hurt more, stretching more from the PT exercises hurt more. He even got massages done and it would feel good, but the pain would come back. He did narcotics to try to help with the pain. As everyone knows here, that's going to help for a short period of time, but the pain's going to come back, right? He even tried changing his diet. He got MRIs, x-ray, and he even tried acupuncture. And yet he still ended up in our office. So why did he want to come into our office? What he said to us was very interesting. He said, every time I move, I'm just so afraid of hurting my back and I don't know what to do anymore. So I feel like I need a movement coach. And so him and Debbie quite literally searched up a movement coach in Google and we popped up. So this is exactly what Peter said when he came in and he said he's looking for a movement coach and here's why. I don't know how to move correctly in a way that won't hurt. And Debbie and I really like to explore alternative health practices instead of just going to PT where it wasn't really helping. And so we wanted to try to find alternative methods to that. He said I didn't want to take pills, and that's where my dad's at. And he has to take so much Advil that he now is having issues with his gut. And Peter said, I've been taking a lot of Tylenol lately, and then it starts making my stomach acid all out of whack, and now I have to start taking antacids to combat the Advil. And he said, the chiropractor I went to was actually quite aggressive, and it was jarring. And honestly, it was exhausting. I feel like I'm falling into my dad's trap. I have levels of pain that I just accept day to day. So I called for the assessment. And that's something that is really common with a lot of the patients that we see is that they typically see themselves and their parents as they're aging and as they're declining. And like I said earlier, they see themselves in the first chapter of that story and think, oh, shoot. And typically when people reach out, they still have enough hope that they can be helped. They just haven't found the right solution yet. But it can be hard, right? It can be hard when you've tried all these different things. You've had 5 to 10 people tell you all these different things are wrong with you and all these different solutions. And to hold on to that hope that we can still get better, we just haven't found the right solution yet, I find very admirable by our patients. I think they're very, very resilient people. And the thing that continuously we see over and over and over again with all of our patients is they say, well, PT didn't work for me, so I know I need something more involved than physical therapy. But I also know that I don't need something as invasive as surgery because I can still live my day-to-day life. I just have made modifications around my life, but I can still get through it. I don't need surgery. And I could go to injections, but I know it's not really solving the problem. It's like a band-aid for my pain. And so they end up somewhere in the middle of not doing anything because they don't know what else is out there. They don't know that we exist. That is exactly where our patients end up. And so they have no other option but to live with it or start to change their life around it. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could live your life without limitations and you had systems in place to know what to do if your back did hurt? And all of that is fancy, right? But it still is irrelevant unless if we actually know what's causing it to begin with. So what we found with Peter with his initial intake was that obviously stretching was making it worse, but he knew that he was limited in his mobility because he couldn't even put on socks and he felt tight, right? So it's normal to think, dang, I just like, I need something. Like, I just need to stretch, right? And so what I found with Peter was when he came in is that, yes, he had problems with his back, but it was not the root of where it was actually coming from. I looked at his back and said, all right, let's see you do your toe touch. Let's see you bend backwards. Let's see how you rotate side to side. Um, lateral, lateral. And I watched how he was moving around and I thought, yeah, his back is stiff, but honestly, like I wonder how his hips are actually moving in real time. And so I put him on his back and I actually assessed how much rotation he had in both of his hips. And what I found is that he was severely limited in his range of motion of his hips. Normally, when I say that, you're probably thinking, okay, so he needs to stretch if he doesn't have that range of motion in his hips. But we know that stretching made it worse. So what's the answer? The answer is that his hip literally didn't know how to move. And stretching is like forcing that hip into a position where it already doesn't know how to move that way. So we're just forcing it there. So quite literally what we had to do at first was teach that hip how to move again. And at the joint, we had to take it through a range of motion and remind that hip how it moves, gaining awareness first of how it moves and then making sure that after we gain all of this range of motion with like him actually doing it in his body instead of us forcing the movement, then we were able to start stacking that on the gains. And I know you're like, but I still can't picture it. It's honestly easier if I can show you rather than tell you. So if you're somebody where you're like, oh, but okay, I don't know what that looks like. That's exactly where all my other patients are. And they're like, I trust you a little bit. But I don't understand how it's different than stretching. That's okay. Just know that it feels like an activation around the hip, but really we have to retrain the way that it moves. And it's possible, but it takes effort. When Peter came in, I will never forget his first appointment. He was like miserable. Like I don't even recognize that Peter anymore. His first appointment, his face was like he was in so much pain, and I remember still putting him on his back on the table, to be able to teach him how to move his hip and breathe through his core. And I remember him having a really hard time, like just laying back on the table and trying to get up. He's like, "Ugh." It was like awful. It was so painful watching him go through it. And I can laugh about it now. And Peter, if you're watching this, I'm sure having a nice laugh. But now Peter is doing amazing. Like he's doing things that every time he comes in, I'm like, you did what? Like that's amazing. And so his very first appointment, I'll never forget that image in my head of Peter and just how miserable he was. And we went through, I showed him some stuff, and within just a few short appointments, he already was starting to turn a corner. However, he knew that this was, if he'd been in back pain for 25 years and did all these things and it didn't work, he knew it was going to take some time to fix it. And slowly but surely, as we improved his range of motion of his hip and he learned how to move through his hip, which was driving the back pain to compensate, then he started to feel better. He was able to get through flights. We crushed him bending over to put on his socks long before that. And he even got on the rower and crushed rowing long before we expected him to. And now Peter has continued to do really well. Peter now is rock climbing for the first time in 30 years with his wife. They're both getting into it and totally transforming their health. And he hasn't had any back pain at all, being in all these weird positions doing his rock climbing. And I love his transformation so much because he went from, I don't want to be like my dad, to, I know I'm not going to be like my dad because I'm in control now. And if anything happens, I know exactly what to do. At the end of the day, what we find in our office is that all of you just want a trustworthy body so that you can say yes to the 1 mile walk with Debbie. And you can do the adventurous rock climbing with Debbie. And you don't have to fear being like your parents. And you don't have to pre-calculate if that movement's going to hurt or not. You just live your life. And so I want you to think here for a second. How have you made your life smaller by avoiding the things that cause you pain? Have you just opted out? Have you just said, nope, I'm not going to go on that walk? No, I'm too old for rock climbing. Are you, or are you just scared of potentially trying another solution and it failing you? Because that's very real too. And so if that sounds like you're someone where you have made your life smaller and you want to get back to who you used to be and you don't want to be like your parents and you think maybe I could be like Peter too. Just maybe. Not 100% sure yet, not sold on it, but maybe I could be like Peter. We do have something for you. We have what's called a free 30-minute discovery visit where you can come in and actually learn what is the root cause of your back pain. What is it? And what we do in this visit is we take an assessment, understand your history, what you've already tried, what's failed, and take you through a full movement assessment. And then by the end, you leave knowing exactly why it's happening. Because once we understand the why, it becomes very easy to talk about the how. But often what we find is that no one's ever taken the time to actually assess you in such a way where we know exactly what is driving this issue. So if that's something that you might be interested in. Let me tell you who it's for and who it's not for. Who it is not for is for somebody who just wants a free assessment, just wants a free visit, and just wants more information. Not who it's for. This is for people who have been let down, want a solution, and want to find the root cause of why this has happened. If that sounds like you, click any of the links around here and you can fill out the form, and we'll be in touch first to make sure it's a fit and then get you scheduled for that discovery visit. Thank you so much for sticking around. You can like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.